JetBlue's making a big bet with the new Premier card, but how does it stack up and is it actually worth it? Today we'll look at the card, why I think it's a skip for most people, and who it might make sense for. I probably am going to make some enemies and piss off a ton of people, but big favor is to give this a thumbs up to help with the algorithm. If you know someone that might benefit, then share this with them. Starting with the basics, let's look at the multipliers. You're getting 6x back on JetBlue, 6x on Paisley, 2x on restaurants, and 2x on eligible grocery stores. Also 1x on everything else. In case you're wondering, Paisley is their OTA, so their online travel agency. The idea being that you can book hotels, car rentals, vacation rentals, and kind of all the other parts of travel that are not the flight. This is a pretty big push with most cards and platforms, so it makes sense. Okay, so we have multipliers, but what are the points actually worth? We'll do a deeper dive later on and how we got these numbers, but let's kind of math it out. You're generally looking at 1.25 to maybe 2 cents per point. If I had to pick a base number, I would say 1.5, which is what you're generally getting for JetBlue economy flights. In this case, 6x is 9% back, 2x is 3% back, and 1x is 1.5% back. So first one makes sense, but the latter two not being competitive. So these might sound great, but the problem is that the net cost you're paying to access these multipliers just doesn't make sense. A big reason for this is that the card has a $499 annual fee. You do have a $300 Paisley credit that kind of helps you, but not really. So normally if it was a credit like any other card, I'd say $499 minus the $300 is a $199 effective annual fee, but it doesn't work like that here. Unlike other credits where you might be pedantic and discounted by a bit, this is a very strange one. So even though it's a $300 annual travel credit, it's technically 6 $50 ones. So by itself, that's already pretty bad and annoying, but it gets worse. In order to trigger each $50 one, you would need to spend $250 in that transaction. Another way to think of it is that you're getting 20% off and up to 50 per time, up to 6 times. That means that in order to get the full value, you need to spend $1,500 through their platform, and probably more because that's assuming best case and spending exactly $250 for each one. $1,500 and probably $2,000 in order to trigger a $300 credit sounds pretty absurd. As much as people seem to hate the credits of other cards, it makes more sense there. There's minor annoyances and hoop jumping, and then there's this. If anything, this is structured more like an international card where credits generally work like this. In the US, we've mostly been lucky to have credits that we can just fully use. For example, here's one from Japan where you get 20% off up to 40,000 yen per year. This is pretty normal, and in a lot of ways, we are pretty spoiled. Historically, I have discounted credits like this pretty aggressively in the past, and I'd probably do the same here. For example, for one of the other mid-level cards that has a $100 annual hotel benefit, I've historically put it at $0 or $50. Main reason being that you have to spend $500 in order to trigger the 100. So even though I fully used mine, it's hard to take it at face value. So given all of this, given how complicated it is and how annoying it is to use, the fair market value to me at least is probably $100. Your mileage may vary, of course, and maybe you used a full credit and it's worth the full $300. That's fine, but I'm kind of just working through my own math. In that case, for me, and probably a lot of people, $499 minus $100 fair market value is a $399 effective annual fee. I travel a lot, I have a lot of cards, I have a lot of credits and stuff. I'm generally fine with credits, but this is just annoying. Taking a step back and looking at the card objectively, it almost feels like an unforced error on their end. And to be fair, there are other benefits of the card. The main issue though is that you can get a lot of them from the JetBlue Plus or business cards. For example, early boarding or redemption bonuses, and all of this is for a $99 annual fee. Same thing for checked bags and anniversary bonuses, you get these on the mid-level cards. Maybe your actual value that you're deriving is more, but you can get it for $99, so that's the actual value. So in our case, continuing with the numbers, $399 minus $99 is a $300 effective annual fee. There also is a global entry or TSA PreCheck credit, but I have been valuing these around $0 because so many cards have them, and it feels very repetitive at this point. If you don't have it, you get value, then great, add that to your calculus. But for me and a lot of people, it's probably $0. Okay, so with all of this, it means that you're paying a $300 effective annual fee to get 2 key benefits. The first one is JetBlue Lounge access for you and one guest. The second one is Priority Pass for you and one guest as well. I will try to strongman the card in the middle, but right now there's way too many question marks. If anything, I'd rather get the Capital One Venture X that has a $395 annual fee, but also credits and anniversary bonuses that pretty much cover the fee. You can argue this and discount this as well, but if you do one trip a year, you pretty much cover the annual fee. So in contrast, you're not jumping through as many hoops, they're pretty fair credits, and it's a break-even card, at least to me. If anything, the Venture X is even a bit better because it's priority pass for you and 2 guests, compared to just one with the JetBlue card. Even if you like the JetBlue perks, just get one of the mid-level cards to unlock those benefits. On that note, if you want to learn about the Venture X card, or maybe the JetBlue Premier card, and you want to support the channel, we do have links on the website, AskSebby.com, and also down below in the description box. Make sure the links are competitive, that the cards make sense for you, and the maths, but otherwise it is a huge way to support the channel, so thank you in advance. Okay, let's do a deeper dive on some key points, starting with the points. JetBlue points are kind of weird. For example, if you're redeeming on JetBlue flights, the value does vary depending on what class of fare you're redeeming for. It also is tied to retail price, which is good and bad depending on what you like. For economy flights, you're generally getting 1.5 cents per point, and same thing for economy plus. Interestingly though, for business class like Mint, you actually get less value. So here about 1.25 to maybe 1.3 cents per point. This is pretty much the polar opposite of most other points where you get more value for business, but yeah, it's kind of weird here. Also note that this and pretty much everything else of the card can change in the future, and if there are changes, I'll try to pin a comment down below and walk through everything. One good option though is going to be Qatar, so if you want to fly their business class, let's say Q Suites, it's generally 70 to 80,000 points from the US to Doha. From US to India, it's generally about 110k points. Cents per point calculations for business class always ends up a little bit insane, so I kind of peg it towards 2 cents per point because that feels like a fair price. And also that's what generally people are willing to pay for a lot of these flights and consider it a good deal. Adjust on your end as necessary. Hawaiian Airlines is also pretty interesting, and this partner might actually disappear because of the whole Alaska merger. For now though, inter-island flights in economy starts at 5k points and business at 10k. If you're flying from the west coast to Hawaii, then economy starts at 20k and business starts at 40k. Finding availability can be tough, especially for the new product, but that's how we actually booked their business class last year. So in our case, it was 60,000 points per person per way. We were willing to pay about 900 to 1,000 to try the new business class, so about 1.5 cents per point in value. Also, our number is what other people were willing to pay as well and did pay, so pretty fair price and a bit cheaper than the actual retail normally. But yeah, for all we know, this option disappears with Alaska. Main takeaway here being that if you fly Q Suites, then value the points higher, but for everyone else, and even if you're flying domestic business, probably a bit lower. I'd probably put at 1.4, 1.5 cents per point because that feels fair. And compared to other options where I would put it at 2 cents, you have so many more transfer partners there and so much more flexibility. The upside here is only really 4 Q Suites. But yeah, if you do end up going with the top line number, that means that 6x is 12% value, 2x is 4%, and 1x is 2% back. And even then, even if you are aggressive, I'd argue that the 2x and 1x categories don't really move the needle compared to some other options out there. There's other cards that earn 4x on those same categories, and if you are aggressive, if you're doing transfer partners for these premium experiences, then that's probably 8%. So here, I'd say that the 6x is the only thing that matters. This actually brings us into another problem, and it's almost a cannibalization issue. So both the JetBlue Plus and JetBlue Business offer 6x on JetBlue. So it kind of goes back to the whole argument that we had that it doesn't really matter because you can get the same benefit for a cheaper price. So in our case, if we comp it to other setups, then I wouldn't count the 6x on JetBlue. That means that the only one that really matters is the 6x on Paisley. That sounds fine, but if you compare it to other cards and their OTAs, you're generally still getting 5x to 10x there, so 6x just doesn't really move the needle. Also, those points are more flexible, you have more upside, and just make more sense. Some of them also transfer their points over to JetBlue, so it gets pretty tough to strongman this. The one argument that I could see and the most interesting proposition is going to be JetBlue lounges. The issue though, at least as of filming, is that none of them are open yet. So we don't know what's inside the box yet, we don't know what it is, whether it's a 14-pound trout or a 3,000-pound marlin. If it ends up being like the United Polaris Lounge, then it might be worth it. But if it's more like the United Club, then less so. Another issue is the fact that there's only 2 that are announced, and it's JFK and Boston. And to be fair, that makes sense. Those are their hubs, those are where the people are at. But also, if you don't go there, if you don't live in those places, then this card just doesn't make sense. If anything, I wish they kind of announced lounges for LAX and SFO because they do have a lot of Mint flights to those airports. Even if they weren't really planning to build it until 2027, if they announced something, it'd be a bit more helpful. Also, on our end, being strategic about this, you wouldn't really want to get the card yet because there was no incentive for you to take that risk. If the lounges end up being great, then perfect. Grab the cards then and reap the benefits. Until then, though, I would argue that it doesn't make sense to buy into it. Another way to think of it is like any other product. So if you don't know what it's like yet, if there's no reviews yet, then there's no point of you pre-ordering it and putting your money up. You might as well wait for other people to guinea pig it, see what it's like, and whether it's worth it. Main takeaway, this card failed to get me off the ground. I am a bit surprised at some of the reviews because they seem comparably more positive and bullish compared to my review. So yeah, maybe I'm missing something there, but let me know. Given how my brain works though, it just feels really tough. If you like it, great. Your mileage may vary, do what you need to do for yourself, but I have a tough time recommending it. Again, even if you like JetBlue, get one of the mid-level cards and the Venture X and call it a day. Again, if you want to learn about cards or whether these ones are pretty much cards from any other issuers and you want to support the channel, we do have links on the website, AskSebby.com, and also down below in the description box. If you made it to this point, leave a blue circle or blue ball emoji in the comments down below, and I'll try to heart it and also respond. I think that's how a lot of people feel about the card. They're blue and sad about it. 3 questions. What are your thoughts on the card? Number 2, what would you get instead? And number 3, do you think they will update it and fix it, or is it what it is? There is a pretty big graveyard of high annual fee cards that just barely make sense outside of year 1. We don't really talk about them because they just don't make sense. But yeah, curious what you think. Big favorite, thumbs up, share this, subscribe. But otherwise, hope you liked it. See you next time.